We spend a lot of time admiring brass models and the craftsmanship that goes into building them. We even talk a lot with the importers, but something we might not fully appreciate is the research and design that starts long before these models can start to be built. So today, we're confident you'll enjoy a segment with Bob Darwin where we discuss just that aspect. Welcome to Monday Morning Express. Bob, one of the things that's always fascinated me, and it's really hard to ever get a grasp on what truly goes into it, is the research and design process
of a project.
Of a brass model project. And I know you've been involved in probably triple-digit amount of projects.
Many. Yeah.
So let's say, for example, just out of the blue, Jimmy Booth calls you up and says, I want to produce a 462 Santa Fe locomotive.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he says, I need your help, Bob.
Okay.
Where would you start, and kind of could you lead us through that process a little so we can know what goes into that part of the development?
Well, this is the easy part, because the first place I would go is to my photo file.
Okay.
And I keep everything in pretty good order so I can find something very quickly. This drawer is all SP.
So everything you have here is organized.
It's pretty well organized, yeah.
And this is an incredibly large amount of negatives.
Yes, it is. And they're all big negatives. I mean, postcard size and on down.
So this is publication quality all the way.
See, this is a postcard size negative.
Wow.
And the quality from this, it defies the imagination. This is much better than most digital photography that you can put together today. But getting back to the question at hand, Santa Fe 462, I would go to my Santa Fe drawer, which is number 4 down here.
Okay.
And the 462 numbers are 3400. So I would look through here for 3400, and these are in order. And then I would pull out the stack, okay?
So in most cases, you have multiple different slides
absolutely.
of that particular class of engine.
So let's go through this stack here, starting at 3400, okay?
Okay.
And I would come into the darkroom.
Which, by the way, was a working darkroom for many years, correct?
It's still a working darkroom, but I use this room strictly now for digital.
Okay.
And I have several small Canon personal cameras, but I use my big Hasselblads for all professional work.
Yeah, that looks like a beautiful camera.
And this particular one right here is a 50 megapixel camera.
Okay.
Which has huge files, and for this you need big computers.
Right.
I just got this one, which is a brand new 4K one.
Right.
Excellent quality. Especially for doing photoshopping and
sure.
With film negatives, you always have imperfections or dots or dust on the film, and I take off all of those dots and imperfections with this machine. Absolutely perfect. It's easy to do.
Very nice.
But to get back to to Jimmy Booth and his request,
we hope.
Yeah, what I would do is go through these negatives and pick out the best ones about the particular version of the engine that he wants.
Right.
And as it turns out, this is the modified version, 1950s version. I don't have the dates on here, but I can tell you just from the configuration. This is like a 1950-51 version. Mm-hmm. It's got the big box drivers and the big tender, okay? All the modifications of the piping, the injectors, that's all modern stuff. So this is what he's looking for.
Right.
So then I would go through the file and take out all the images that I have of that particular version. And that's what I would send to him. Now, that's just the beginning of the project, though.
Sure.
Then I have to go through my file to see what I have drawing-wise. That's the other part of the equation. And then historically, when was it modified? Exactly what was done to modify the engine? All those different things that he would want to know to produce the engine properly.
Right.
And if he has any photographs, he might send them to me to help me go through my file to see what I have to back that up.
Because the bigger the data file, the
more
better
data
the project
you have,
will be.
absolutely. And it gets down to the point of how much data can you put together.
Right.
And the more data you have or can you put together, the better the project will be. Especially when it comes to drawings and photographs. Written data is not that important except for dates when things happen, you know. That sort of confirms a photograph. If you see a photograph from 1948, you know it didn't have box drivers or whatever, you know.
Right.
And so you have to sort of know a little bit of the history of that particular class of engine. And when I get everything together, I'll send him that package with my instructions as to how I think he should proceed to do it. If I don't have a particular drawing, I will go to my drawing board and give him that drawing.
Okay.
Okay?
Which you will produce from your photographs.
From the photographs, yeah.
Okay.
And I've done that on lots of different projects.
And you still do that by hand? Do you do that digitally?
I do it by hand.
Okay.
I'm one of the few guys
way. That still can.
I still have my drawing board and I use a pencil and paper. I work best that way. I know all the modern guys think, we got a digital, you know, whatever. That's fine, but I can do it this way and it works out fine for me.
Right, and that's how it was done when these engines were produced.
Yeah.
So do you ever use your library to like look at research other authors may have done?
Absolutely, always.
And do you have to filter through any inaccuracies in those books, or are they normally pretty spot on?
No, I find lots of inaccuracies in written accounts, specifically in the narrative that accompanies photographs. Usually wrong. It amazes me sometimes how little detail the authors get correct, because all they have to follow is the same thing that I'm looking at, a photograph or some written data. But if you look at the photograph, you can sort of put a lot together. And it seems a lot of times that an author doesn't have the time to do that or the inclination to do it. So he just does a cursory job and sort of smooths it over and hopes that that's sufficient. For me, it's not, because I want to make sure that if I say this has got box drivers, I want to make sure it's got it, you know, or whatever it happens to be.
And if you were ever questioned later, you would have photographic proof of the decisions that were made in that project. And
since most of my photographs are dated, see, here's a perfect a negative. Santa Fe 3424 was photographed on December 1st, 1955. I know exactly when that shot was taken.
Very nice.
And who took it. In this case, I don't know who took it, because I just have a file number for it. But in most cases, I do. Paul Stringham photograph.
Okay.
Robert Darwin Collection, photographed 9/19/48. In this way, I have a very, very good idea of what to expect out of the photograph. And oftentimes, you use the photograph to determine certain data. You know, a lot of times people don't know, well, when did they paint the journals silver? That was a question John Gray asked me.
Right.
And I said, well, let me go through the file. And I found out it was 1955.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I think many authors, even if they're well-intentioned, wouldn't have access to this amazing collection of negatives and photos, or they wouldn't be organized enough to find it. So when did you start accumulating and organizing those?
Well, since I've been photographing since I was 10, interestingly, my first camera, this is a very historic situation. In 1936, I was 10 years old. and the Hindenburg came to America. And I was just absolutely thrilled with this. I
imagine.
And interestingly, the route that it took from New York to Lakehurst was right over our house.
Wow.
Every time it came to America, it flew over our house. And so I said to my dad, why don't we buy a camera, so I can take pictures of this beautiful thing, So the next time the Hindenburg came to Lakehurst, he had this camera for me. It was a little Kodak Brownie. $5 or something, the camera. And he said, I'm not going to even let you take a picture here. I'm going to take you to Lakehurst, and you can take a picture of it, as it's landing and all that stuff. Oh my God! I was so excited I couldn't sit straight. So he gave me the camera. I said, now how do you operate the thing? So he showed me how to load the film, and he said, you look through here, and then you push the button down. It was a very simple design camera. One click down, the next one you clicked upwards, and then you just roll the film to the next number, Mm-hmm. He didn't explain to me, though, that if you shoot it this way, it's a portrait. But to get a landscape, you have to hold it this way. So I shot all my shots of the Hindenburg portrait.
Okay.
So I cut off all the tails and all the noses.
Oh, well.
Yeah, and I also double exposed most of them. I was so distraught. I said, I got to get a better camera. So at the first opportunity, he bought me a Leica, if you can believe it.
Oh, wow.
From a Brownie to a Leica.
Yeah, that's a pretty big step up.
Yeah.
Maybe those early failed photographs drove you to take the best quality photographs possible.
They did, because I was so disappointed with my failure in not knowing how to operate this stupid camera. I was really pissed off at myself. Cut that.
This is Jimmy Booth, and I'm coming to you from Monday Morning Express.
Chuck, a question sometimes we get asked by our viewers and customers is, with so much demand and all these products announced, and we hate waiting, why can't Boo Rim or the builders in Korea just scale up their business? And if there's the demand, fill it quicker.
That's a great question, and I also get that very same question. And so 10 years into this now, we pretty well understand there are a number of realities. One, these models each one is handmade. And there are only a limited number of artisans that can do this kind of work. And as we mentioned in an earlier episode, there are even fewer. Every day there's fewer artisans that can do this kind of work and want to do this kind of work, because the young people today are really mostly looking for tech jobs and different kind of work than what this represents. And then there's a very long process. So it starts with finding out if there's interest in doing a project. So as Ed and I have said before, first thing is we have to want it.
Right.
Ourselves for our own collections. And then we have to find out how many other people are interested, and that's an area where BrassTrains.com, you guys have just done a tremendous job to help us. Monday Morning Express, the Brass Expo, everything you've done helps us get as early a handle as possible on what the level of interest is. So then when we put the interest out there, every time we get calls for more variations. Mm-hmm. So we catalog all the total interest, the quantities. We also catalog the variations. And we look at ways we can stretch the variations as far as we can. But ultimately, then we have to boil the variations back down. Mm-hmm. So, an example of one thing we innovated with Seiho to help us with that is, in the old days, the passenger cars, fluted car would be manufactured with a etched number board and name boards and main letter boards and all that kind of thing. So for the Bluebird project, to be able to do the two different color schemes and then the different lettering for Norfolk and Western, the original Wabash, two different kinds of Wabash lettering, we said, Seiho, make the model without the name boards and the number boards, and then we'll apply those as an add-on with canopy glue at the end. So that allowed us to do a whole lot more variations because the core model's the same model. We're doing the same thing with the 10.6 sleeper project. And then sometimes we just have to say no to a variation. But we've tried to be creative where we can in order to allow us to do more variations. Then we have to collect the drawings, the photos, and all the other stuff that goes into the data package, get that over to Korea, and then you saw in the Illinois Central segment how the 3D CAD drawings are created, and then once we approve those, we're ready to start the actual pilot model building, and then the production process after that. So those are the reasons that it's not a simple matter of saying, well, SEHO now, instead of doing 8 projects that we have in the pipeline, we want to either do 16 projects or we want to do the 8 projects and get them all done in 1 year. It's simply not possible. So I think a lot of those of us who collect these models have learned that we just have to wait. So with this pipeline of 8 projects, we're looking at late 2019 now, and even into 2020 before you would see the delivery of the production models of the last of the 8 of those. And then of course we'll be introducing more new projects along the way as the Krauss-Maffe's close out, as the Illinois Central and Wabash units close out, and so forth. But that's why it takes so long.
Sure, and basically what you're saying is that pipeline's very long, and there's a lot of specialized know-how all along the way, from the photos, the research, the identifying the project, and then all the different stages of the hand building, the painting, that's somebody else, the sub-assemblies. So it's not like you can just say, hey, this month, let's just double or triple the manpower and crank out 3 of these projects. It just doesn't work that way.
You just can't do it.
It's a long-term play.
Another example that comes to mind now, SEHO has specialists. He calls the people that make the 3D CAD drawings out of our data package designers.
Okay.
So he has a designer who has a lot of experience and expertise in steam engines. He has a designer who knows passenger cars. And he has a designer who knows diesels. And there's only one of each of those specialists. So, and one designer will be working on, for example, the Krauss-Maffe's for maybe 6 months. So we can't tell them, well, work on the Krauss-Maffe's and the DH643s at the same time.
Right.
Just can't do it.
And then in addition, you know, it's like having a great restaurant and just adding 3 more chefs. If they're not up to the first chef, the restaurant goes down. So we're not going to be satisfied if we get stuff quicker, but the quality is not the same.
There you go. Great analogy.
All right. Well, hopefully that gives our viewers a little understanding. We should be happy with what we get. Keep ordering, and we're looking forward to getting those projects here just as soon as we can. We're back with Boyd Reyes. Hey, Boyd, thanks for having us out again.
Hey, you're welcome.
Tell us a little bit about some of the things this season that you're going to show us that we didn't get to see in the previous season, too.
In season 2, we finished off after the decaling, but we're going to go back and finish off the rest of the cars. I'm going to show you from the processes for after decaling, like the clear coats, passenger car interiors, removal of skirts.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Some cool stuff. Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
mighty big of you.
You know, we're just going to finish off the cars. You know, that's it. Just finish off these cars. And then that way, you know, people at home that have been following the series can go through all the steps.
So for our viewers that felt we just didn't have enough Boyd in season 3, because there's just
I'm
a little
back
bit, he's
with a
back.
vengeance.
That's right.
Hey, you know, I think on this one, you know, Pat really loved Jimmy, but I think he's going to be your #1 fan, Boyd.
Fan Boyd. We're going to have to come up with your own logo and T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Baseball caps.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to show us a little something special is that you've done to make sure that these models that you have painted really have your signature, so to speak.
Yes, there's been a lot of people asking. It's like, can you come up with something? So
Yeah.
I think I found a solution.
Good.
Yeah.
So it's going to be some great information for our viewers. I know they're going to love it. So we can't wait to get started.
Boyd, I've been put into some unique positions. Last season, I had to talk about Hal and his shorts. Now I got to talk with Boyd and his skirts.
And how to remove them.
How to remove the skirt
Yeah.
from a model. Well, I
Well-
better be careful on saying that.
Yeah.
First of all, why would someone want to remove their skirts from their model?
Originally, a lot of these cars were made with skirts, and the skirts were, for that art. I mean, what is it? I forgot the Art Deco look or the streamline look. And what happened is, over the years, the maintenance departments just got tired of lifting up the doors. On a passenger car, the skirt is the bottom portion that covers up all the appliances.
Right.
It's almost like a mobile home. The skirt's on the mobile home to hide all the appliances and plumbing and stuff. So what we're doing is we're gonna model, like, I guess in the 1950s, when a lot of these skirts were removed
automatically, right?
And so the departments just went through and just started cutting them off. And as recently on importing brass, they're offered two different versions, with skirts, without skirts. So it just depends on what time period you're modeling. And even plastic cars are being offered with skirts and without.
Right.
So there's a large inventory out there, I've noticed, of cars with skirts, because that early time period, it's getting to the point where people rather model where they show off all the details on the spot on the bottom. But you always got to remember, when you do remove skirts, now you're going to expose the bottom of your car.
Right.
And so you, as a modeler, you can go there and add more appliances or plumbing or whatever. But if your model has quite a bit of details, cut the skirts.
Okay, so I noticed we have a painted model and we have an unpainted model.
Yes.
So tell us the differences between the two and
How to
how
cut.
you're going to affect one versus the other.
Well, heat will destroy the paint.
Right.
When you're bringing a cutoff wheel,
It gets
or you're
hot.
in the process, it gets hot, and you got to keep it cool. I would recommend cutting a painted car with a mill, where you can pour the fluid over. When I receive a car to be de-skirted, I had to remove all the interior and just pretty much leave it clean, because the fine dust, the brass dust, gets everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's better just to start off fresh. Take
Yeah.
it all apart and then put it on a mill. You remember, at home, if you're going to use a mill to cut this stuff, you have to develop a brace to keep the car as stiff as possible,
Right.
because the vibrations can loosen a lot of your joints.
Right. And obviously you're pretty good at this. Because
Yes, yeah. I cut up all kinds of cars. And
This is more than just de-skirting.
Example, right? This is cutting way too much. Yeah, a little trim on the top,
But for our demonstration purposes.
Demonstration purposes, I will remove this bottom skirt, or else I can do one
Yeah.
right here. Here is a nickel-plated car, which I removed the skirt.
Yeah, and obviously, as you mentioned on this, you've got a nice guide there with the lines automatically,
corrugation on it. Well, if you don't have any lines, you just get a piece of tape,
Hey, that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
here, I just get a piece of tape.
And we might want to mention, before doing this process, just be mindful of our safety gear, because as I touch this is very sharp.
Yeah.
We cut brass with it.
Yeah. Here, let's cut this section right here.
Okay.
Let's go. So what I'm going to do is, underneath the where the trucks would normally sit, that is your straight line. So they usually kept that intact.
Move this out of the way. Let's see.
So yeah. So let me pull on this tape.
Gives you a guide.
Yeah, that's my guide. I'm getting rid of everything underneath that skirt.
Okay.
But we also need to cover up the rest of the car.
Right.
Because if this blade moves or decides it wants to go somewhere else, I always recommend just
It's easy to jump off, right?
protect the car, so, I'll go like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, you only want to put on tape when you have an unpainted model. If you put this on there and
you're
you're
gonna
cutting, you have to make sure that it's really cool, because when you go peel off the tape, you might take off your decals or your paint or whatever. So, yeah, tape. You use a very low tack tape when you have a painted model.
Okay.
So for right now, for demonstration purposes, I just cut this. your Dremels, I suggest using a hose type. If you use the hand type, it could go away from you. Now, I know this is going to freak out a lot of people. It's like, what? He's going to cut with the wheel? We're not going to cut the blue line. We're going to give ourselves a gap. I'm not going and do not go all the way to the top. We're going to remove, all we're doing is removing material for the next step.
Okay.
So I will go through and
Do you need a mask or anything for this?
yes, for the, just for safety purposes.
Sure.
I don't want to breathe the brass dust,
Neither do I.
Yeah, don't, yeah.
I'll back
I
away.
just don't
a
like
little
breathing
bit.
it, And let me get my...
Yeah, because those brass shards will just fly, won't
Yeah,
they?
here it goes.
Yeah.
So with this, you will hold a car. Here, let's see this one right here. Like this. And you're gonna cut in this direction like this.
Towards you. All right.
Yeah, towards that. And I can do this one right here, but you want to go with the big wheel. Try to go with the woven carbon bits versus the uncarbon, because if it splits, it'll stay together. Now, you saw where it started to jump
saw
and
the
started
jumping.
going. That's why I say leave a bit on there.
Right.
The next process, it's not going to be, it's so easy, and you'll have a lot more control versus using this. You try to go with the big blade as big as you can go. It's gone down a little bit, but you don't want to use the tiny cutoff wheels.
Sure.
That's just stay away from that.
So,
Use that for other
but
projects.
Make sure you have your eye protection on and, of course, a mask there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, our next step is to use the belt sander to remove the rest of the material.
And as you mentioned, you wouldn't just use this right at the outset because you would just waste your
Yeah,
entire...
you're just going to waste a lot of your sanding material and stuff. So I just use a cutoff wheel. If you're not, the problem is using a belt sander, you can vibrate some stuff loose on your car too. It's just that small vibration can loosen up the joints and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've seen it before.
Okay. So if you had this car, how would you run it across your belt sander?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to just come across like this slowly in passes like that. And I will use the tape to gauge how close. And now this is going to take us down to another level. It's not going to be the finishing level. It's going to take us closer, which we will come in and then manually sand it. Because brass is a soft material and you can go in and sand it.
Okay.
But we're going to come down even closer.
Let me ask you a question. So obviously that is for demonstration purposes. If you had your model here, you would have both sides already cut.
No, you can, like on this one, I only cut one side just for demonstration purposes. Here's the other side of the car.
Okay.
It has
so
a full skirt.
when you go to hold that up against the sander, though, you'd be
It's best to have them both cut, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's best to just go through and cut them both. It'll be, yeah, ready?
Let's do it.
All righty.
Let's do it.
So with this, I just come side to side. It's really bad demonstration with this. It's not as rigid as this.
Right.
If I had this, I couldn't go like this. Go. There it is. We pretty much removed the skirt.
Very nice.
Right there. See, the other side is still in there, but yeah, pretty much removed the.
And that one you didn't even cut, but because of this demonstration
Yeah, this
purpose,
is just really all over
was
the
flimsy,
place.
right.
This
Okay.
one has a rigid backing.
Okay.
So now we've taken it down that far, and the next step that we could do is to finish it off manually.
All right.
I've constructed a 2 aluminum blocks with Allen screws to hold down my sandpaper. And what I'll do is just run it back and,
And
forth.
it's sharp at this point, right?
Yes, it is sharp. Just go back and forth like that, and it's just going to start coming off all the sharp edges.
Right, right. Okay.
And just
All
keep
right,
on
so that's what
eyeballing it
we
like
do.
that. Yeah.
Excellent.
And
Okay.
you can see all this dust. You
Yeah,
just don't
isn't
want
it
that
something?
dust in your lungs.
Right, right.
You know? But yeah, just go
So
through
that's how
like
we
that
do
with
it.
the sanding block.
Right.
Yeah,
Very
cut
good.
skirts.
Okay. Wow, thanks a lot. We really appreciate
Yeah.
that. Now, any of those old pieces that may be sitting in the closet or anything, you want to remove the skirts?
Yeah.
It can easily be done.
In the closet.
Yeah, you
Go
might
to the
have them in a
store.
closet.
There's a lot of them there.
Might go to
man.
brasstrains.com
Yeah,
and purchase
brasstrains.com.
some.
There's plenty of models in there with
All right.
skirts.
Well, thanks for that tip. We really appreciate
Yeah,
it, Boyd.
You're welcome.
All right.
Ron, we gave a little teaser to our audience last week about our layout. So I think the first thing I would like to talk about is the modular design. Let's discuss that and why this is a little bit different than the average layout.
Well, as we learned in the past, you can't get everything through a doorway, so this time we're trying to engineer it that way. And my biggest obstacle was this Victoria station here, because it comes in 3 big pieces. So I made this kind of pork chop shape modular piece on wheels, and everything screws together, bolts together with wing nut and whatever underneath. And then we can take it apart and run it out the doorway.
Right, so this, we know ultimately this is going to sit up the elevated section and
Correct.
come over like this, and then there's going to be an interchange there, and underneath that will be the subway, which you're working on right now.
Yeah, this is the subway area, and the biggest challenges with doing any kind of a subway for anybody that's ever attempted one is getting access to the pieces underneath and
Right.
getting your hand in there to work on it.
So this is where you've gotten a little space, and then we know some of these walls are removable.
Yeah, I had to do removable walls and handholds and stuff to reach up through and stuff so you can get underneath. You got to be able to clean the track and maintenance it. What if something derails? You got to get to it.
Right. And now most guys, when they hear modular, they think like a rectangle. Rectangles go together. But you've split this like at diagonals, and why did you choose to do it that way?
Well, this is roughly at a 60-degree angle, this turn that's built into this station. So I basically took the city and turned it at that same angle. So we got a square grid running that way. Once I get to the turn, now the square grid runs square with the outside. So I didn't want to cut at long sliver diagonals through this piece. So the compensation was to just make the trolley, the base underneath, at a built-in angle.
Sure. And then the other advantage is it's going to be very easy to disguise the seams. Like, I don't think we'll even be able to spot those when we put it together.
Yeah, the goal is to offset the seams as much as we can. I don't want to look down a long street or boulevard and see one big long gap.
Right.
So I'm going to try to offset them and even take some of the buildings and straddle them over. Taking it apart is not like a modular club where it's going to move constantly.
Right.
This is just in the event we have to get out the door for any particular reason. We want to not make a big disaster out of it and just move some buildings offset. There's new challenges with that, though, is the electrical inside the buildings, fiber optics, that sort of thing, all has to be independent on each carriage.
Yeah. I think it's an age-old conundrum with model railroading. Most guys realize that when they start a layout, they should build it where they could move it, because even if we think we'll never move, sometimes it happens, and then they go to start building it, and it just turns into a boat in a basement, right?
Yeah, I think everybody's been down that road at one point or another. So we're just trying to foresee that ahead of time. I can't say that every seam's perfect, but we're going to, do our best and make a lot of removable parts, things that will straddle over the seam, like a piece of road, asphalt, sidewalks, manhole covers, anything. We can do a color break, maybe we can hide the seam there, but we're trying to zigzag that seam so it's not a consistent line from one end of the model to the other.
Another challenge with modulars often is they're very flat, but we're trying to wedding cake this and get those streets and intersections and subways and elevated and trolleys and hills.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the challenges with that combined with trying to still keep it modular?
Well, in a sense, that could actually work to our favor, because if you know, cities are built over time, so you'll have some Art Deco retaining walls, you'll have some other retaining walls that are pretty plain concrete with planters and whatnot built into them. Those could be pretty removable, I would think, and when it's time to take this thing apart. And if I just kind of set them in by gravity, even park a car on it. Some of our little crowds, you know, we could glue on a piece of styrene, you know, 20 or 30 people like a little crowd set, and that could hide a seam. And yet from the outside edges, it just looks like, you know, a sea of hats, like you say, and back in those days.
Because we're doing the 1930s,
exactly.
so that
and
was
everybody
kind
had
of the
hats
look.
in those, so we could help hide a lot of stuff that way too. So I like the idea that we're not going just a flat sheet of plywood, but there is a lot of topography involved.
Right.
So I think that can work to our advantage.
Yeah, and I hope our viewers appreciate not just kind of going on this journey with us as we complete this layout, but I think maybe they'll learn some nice tips too if they would like to approach layout building from a little different aspect. We don't plan on moving this. Like you say, it's not something that's going on the road every week, but we want it to be able to be something where it doesn't have to get left behind if it does get moved.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a lot of fun kind of seeing that process come together as this grows. So keep up the good work, Ron. And we will check back with you in a future episode.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Fred Hill from the original Whistle Stop, and welcome to the Monday Morning Express Season 4. And I still have my old mug.
Another great episode.
Yeah, it's good.
Like the part with Bob Darwin, and we will be back out for the second part of that, and then there's a lot more to come.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it.
Bob.
Looking forward to it. Hey Dan, one of the things I just wanted to mention and let our viewers know is that you might have noticed on our website at brasstrains.com, well, there's been a bit of a change, right?
A few changes.
And if I could best describe it this way, it's kind of like we've got, well, not a new outer body of an automobile, but we got a new engine.
Right.
And so it's much more secure. It runs a lot faster. We know that there's a few little tweaks that we're working through, but we want to assure you that in the long run, it is a much better, more enhanced website. Now, some of the features that our audience, if you go to the checkout page, you'll see that it's much easier to check out when you purchase a model from us, all on one page there versus what we had before. You'll see we've also added in the listings view a grid view. It used to be just the listing, but now you can do a grid view. So for some guys that are really enjoying that feature, enabling them to see the models a little clearly up front there. So that's good. We've also added the ability in your My Account section to be able to enter multiple shipping addresses, among other things. So overall, the engine has really been charged up.
Many
on this.
months in the works.
Probably the single biggest update we've done,
Right.
really, since we've had that website at its inception. So,
And a lot of things the customers may not be aware of, like we had to go through our stock and get exact dimensions and weights on
Right.
every single box. So shipping will
Absolutely.
be much more accurate,
Yeah.
both for our international customers and domestic.
Sure.
And like you said, the security, which we treat very seriously.
it's number one for us, believe it or
is.
not, and we want the customers to know that too. Now, another thing that many people might not be aware of, because sometimes we have challenges with our alert list as far as sending out notifications. Many people don't realize we send out over 17,000 a month
Wow.
just on alert lists. So
Yeah.
many people have signed up for it.
So you're in good company if you get an alert.
That's it. They want that model fast, and we don't
That's
blame
right.
them. Something that they're desiring, looking at for a while. So go ahead and feel free to sign up for that. But we will let you know that the absolute quickest way to get an alert is SMS text messaging, because it doesn't have to go through that email process. Different servers have different lag times where that text, it comes across, it's there almost instantly. So if you want that model the fastest way possible, SMS text.
Right. And we did spend quite a bit of time getting that email
Yeah.
system better and able to scale to more volume. But like you say, still
Right.
SMS is their best bet.
Right, absolutely.
Very good. And speaking of the website, a few things you can look forward to coming up this week. We'll be listing a number of traction items, several of those, as you can see here, nicely custom painted, Pacific Electric, Sitem, but other importers as well. Some very unique items. Years ago, we handled the PFM collection, as many are aware.
Yeah.
These are silver-plated pilot models. They come with a certificate of authenticity. There's an etched plaque underneath each one with a PFM number.
Sure.
You can really own a piece of history. Some of them come with actual ad mock-ups that PFM used, and that's where these silver-plated, actual nickel-plated models were designed for. Is originally they were shot not in digital, but maybe in a 4x5 or some sort of photography where the light just picked up better when they plated those models. Some of them don't even have a motor because they were really just advanced production samples used for those full-page ads that many of our viewers remember fondly on the back of Model Railroader and Craftsman. So anyhow, we got a collection from a fellow who had purchased a lot of those originally through the PFM estate, and we'll be listing those this week. So if you would like to own a little piece of PFM and brass model train history, watch our site this week.
Yep, absolutely. I love the plated versions, but boy, these are nice custom paint jobs on these items, and so just some beautiful pieces.
Yeah, we also have a number of Canadian items, some Pennsylvania items, and
lots of stuff going up.
Keep listing. All right, well, here's a little preview of what's coming up next week on Monday Morning Express.
Next week, we'll finish up discussing some of what goes into preparing the research and design of a brass model train project with Bob Darwin. Roland and Chuck Sted go over a few more upcoming projects from Union Terminal Imports and their current status. We've shown you how to paint passenger cars with Boyd Reyes. Now, learn how to install realistic interiors. And finally, we get to meet Scott Inman, brass collector, Southern Pacific historian and author, an expert at installing sound and DCC in brass models. Our new Sounding Off with Scott segments will include great tips for DCC and sound installs in various size brass steam and diesel locomotives.